fall of 2009, Red Squadron from Naval Special Warfare Development Group was on their way to a remote forward operating base in one of the most volatile regions of eastern Afghanistan. The operators were traveling late at night in a CH-47 Chinook helicopter, and though it had been a relatively short ride from Jalalabad, several of the operators desperately needed to pee. So as soon as the chopper hit the floor, they raced off into the darkness to relieve themselves about 50 meters outside the perimeter of the small fire base. But the SEALs were violently interrupted by several rocket-propelled grenades slamming into the ground all around them, peppering them with shrapnel, followed by tracer rounds landing all around them. The SEALs quickly dropped to the ground and crawled into a nearby ditch while trying to button their pants back up. Meanwhile, the helicopters the SEALs just exited quickly took off and flew out of the valley. But as the second chopper took off, its rotor wash set off one of the trip flares that surrounded the base. In theory, these flares were meant to alert the base of an attack, but now the illumination of the flare took away the cover of darkness, leaving the SEALs completely exposed. But just in time, the American soldiers inside the base started hammering the enemy with mortar rounds and 50 cal machine guns, giving the operators the cover they needed to sprint away from the flare and out of the combat zone. Now taking cover in a new ditch closer to the perimeter of the base, the SEALs watched as the American heavy weapons hammered the ridgeline, sending what was left of the enemy force fleeing into the darkness. The SEALs then quickly made their way to the main gate and inside the protective wall of the outpost. The team's medic then started working on the wounded. No one was hurt bad, but shrapnel from the RPGs hit an Army Ranger as well as the team's interpreter and their assault dog. With the fighting now over, the helicopters made their way back to the base to pick up the wounded. With the wounded now all loaded up on the chopper and on their way back to base, the team leaders met with the FOB's Army Company commander to finally get to the reason the SEALs were even at this small outpost to begin with. The operators were there to hit a large compound not far from the forward operating base. Their plan was to hike about 7 kilometers to the target location, where the SEALs would then split up with an 8-man team walking along the ridge line over the compound to set up a blocking position on the uphill side, containing the fighters in the valley if they tried to escape. The rest of the SEALs would then hit the compound from the front, forcing the enemy straight into an ambush, with the 8-man team hitting them from the high ground. The SEALs assaulted these types of compounds all the time, and over the years they learned that the enemy rarely stayed to fight and would almost always run off to the closest village, where they would then take hostages in hopes that the SEALs would back off. So the operators started setting up this type of ambush so they could easily handle anyone who tried to run off. But after going over the plan with the Army commander, the commander informed the SEALs of one problem with their plan. The trail they were planning to hike was a goat trail, and it was basically straight up. This wasn't going to be much of a hike, but more like climbing a near vertical mountainside. The SEALs needed to hit this compound and be back at base before sunrise, but the Army captain was now saying they'd be lucky to even reach the compound before sunrise. So the team decided to scrap the goat trail plan and instead just take the main road most of the way up the valley before splitting off to take the high ground and assault the compound. The Army soldiers at the base were about to head out to patrol that same road anyway, so they would have about 20 extra men with them for at least the first half of the hike. But even with them taking the main road halfway there, it was still going to be at least a 3-hour hike, with the last hour being mostly climbing so they could take the high ground over the compound. The hike was going to be so intense that several of the operators decided to actually ditch their plates back at the base so they would be a bit lighter, even knowing that that meant they would have to assault the compound without any body armor. But after multiple hours of climbing, the team now had eyes on the compound. There were 3 central buildings with a courtyard in the middle, and several additional small structures scattered around the perimeter. At the front of the field were a series of fields cut like stairs into the rock face. the SEALs split off into 3 different teams. Alpha team prepared to take the main target compound, while Bravo team focused on the southern compounds farther down the hill. Charlie team went higher up the hill to catch any runners. With all teams now set in their positions, the troop chief spoke quietly over the radio. "Take it, nice and slow." Altogether, the 3 teams moved in silently into the compound to hit their targets. When Alpha team reached their building, the front door was locked, so they quietly made their way around the back side of the building, where they entered the courtyard through a small gate. Fortunately for the SEALs, the courtyard was clear and the back door to their building was unlocked. As they stacked up on the door, they could see the lasers from the team's snipers up on the hill scanning the windows above them. As Alpha team entered the building, they saw a man messing with a flashlight, so one of the SEALs quickly subdued him. At the same time, a man sleeping on the floor in that same room quickly woke up. He was wearing a chest rack and had an AK-47 next to him, so 2 of the SEALs opened fire on the man. The SEALs then entered the next room, where they found a group of civilians, so they left 1 SEAL behind to watch them while the rest of the team continued to clear the compound. Just as the operators were stacking up on the next door, one of the team's snipers had a perfect view into the room through an opened window. The sniper could see 6 Taliban fighters quickly grabbing their AKs and preparing to ambush the SEALs on the other side of the door, so the sniper opened fire on them through the window. Cracking the door open, the SEALs on the inside could see the men scrambling for cover, so they simply tossed a frag into the room and shut the door. They waited for the explosion and then made their way to the next door. The SEALs cleared the rest of the building. The enemy fighters started to climb the windows in hope of escaping, which made them easy targets for the snipers. The team inside could hear the sound of the suppressed shots from the snipers, followed by the thump of the enemy fighters dropping out of the windows. Outside of the compound, one of Bravo team's squad automatic weapon gunners went hot. The rest of the SEALs were all running suppressors, so the sound of the machine gun echoed across the valley. The SAW gunner was engaging a large group of hostile fighters coming to reinforce the compound from farther up the valley. The SEALs were now engaged in 3 separate firefights. Bravo team handled the reinforcements, Charlie team picked off the runners, and Alpha continued to clear the compound. The fighting was getting intense, but then the SEALs could hear the sound of an AC-130 buzzing overhead, and within minutes the gunship started hammering the enemy's reinforcements, so the SEALs could then shift their focus back to the compound. One of the many things that makes Navy SEALs so dangerous is their ability to control their throttle in the middle of chaos. They started this assault off slow and quiet. They then had to go loud to deal with the enemy reinforcements. But now, with the AC-130 on station, it was time to slow down and go quiet again. The team creeped their way through buildings and down alleyways, hunting the remaining enemy fighters. And it didn't take long for the all-clear call to come through the radio, meaning it was time to switch gears and begin sensitive site exploitation, or SSE. The team needed to search the compound for any valuable intel they could get, and they needed to do it quickly because at this point it was 4 a.m. and the sun would be up soon. Not to mention the fact that the AC-130 was still pounding the enemy reinforcements farther up the valley, with reports of even more hostile fighters on the way. So the SEALs took photos of everything and then piled up all the weapons and ammo they could find in the middle of the compound and set explosive charges on a 5-minute delay. They then quickly and quietly snuck back out the way they came. As they raced down the mountainside, they heard the explosion of the enemy's weapons and ammunition being destroyed. The hike back down the mountain was much easier than the way up. The team made it back to base in just under 3 hours, but the AC-130 gunship continued to engage enemy fighters in the valley that were searching for the SEALs. Not only did they completely clear the compound of all hostile fighters, but by the end of the assault, the SEALs managed to eliminate a total of 17 hostile fighters, and God only knows how many bodies the AC-130 stacked that night. The mission was a complete success with absolutely no casualties on the SEALs' side, aside from the wounded men from when they first landed at the FOB. It is believed that the hostile fighters that assaulted the base when the SEALs first arrived were actually from this compound, and they had been regularly hitting the forward operating base at least once a week for a very long time. So now with this compound cleared out, the American soldiers at the forward operating base got a nice break from the constant attacks. And with that, guys, that's going to be the end of this video. Most of the details for this story are coming from the book No Easy Day, written by Matt Bissonette under the pen name Mark Owen. I legit can't say enough good things about this book. It is phenomenal. I will have a link down in the description for you guys to pick this up, and I highly, highly recommend it. But thank you guys so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really, really helps me out, and I appreciate all of the support. But you guys know the drill. Now that you're done here, get off your phone or whatever you're watching this on, go to the gym and spend some time with your loved ones. The season you're in right now will not last forever, so make the most of it. And be sure to take the time to read your Bible and pray today. God is real, and if you will just take the time to seek Him, He will change your life in the best way possible. But anyway, guys, I hope you have a fantastic day, and I will see you dudes in the next video.